Welcome back to some Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today? Where you can probably tell from today's title is we'll be talking about the game, which I'm playing, which I have played, I suppose now, for my YouTube series, Everhood. So just to warn you, this is, if you're new here, this is a daily vlog. Basically on Animal Crossing I talk about random things. This is not a proper review. This is nothing really to do with Animal Crossing Cross Everhood or anything like that. This is just me, a random person, talking about a game I played. Because that is today's topic. So hello everyone, we're now in Fawnhallow. It's 5:41 PM on Saturday, February 15th, 2025. Hope you all had a lovely Valentine's Day yesterday, and if you didn't, hopefully now you can get some great discounted chocolates. Or roses, I suppose. And I don't know, roses are always really expensive no matter the timing, so hey ho. Anyway, yes, Everhood. I'll warn you before I get into any spoilers about this game. I would say that this is probably a game you don't want to be spoiled on, is what I say. As many sort of indie RPGs sort of kind of go, in my opinion. But yeah, on the whole, I liked it. I didn't hate it, and I don't think I super loved it or anything. I think there are definitely moments of it I liked and different parts and pieces, but then other parts maybe didn't quite hit the way I expected it to, or maybe it could have. And I'm not saying that as a fault of the game. I'm just saying that's for me personally. Because, you know, as I say, everything I'm going to say is incredibly subjective. I don't think it's really objective. You might love it, you might hate it. I don't know. I'm not you. But yeah, on the whole, I like it. I like it as a concept, because I do like indie RPGs, and I feel like they do have a tendency to be subversive in some way, of changing up the genre from the usual standard hero goes on an adventure, defeat the final boss sort of thing. And Everhood is no exception. I'll get into that later, but it's spoilers for now. But the core concept, mechanically, I think it's actually kind of cool. I think at first glance, at first blush, it looks like a rhythm game. I would say it probably should not be considered one. Its core mechanic. Its core mechanic is much closer to a bullet hell, to be honest. Music-based bullet hell, where everything is synced up sort of timing-wise to the music. I would also say that if you don't have photosensitivity, I would highly recommend playing the game with the not turning on the photosensitivity mode or whatever. If you have photosensitivity, maybe avoid the game in general, because I think it does have quite a lot of flashing lights even. But I put it on anyway because I was I don't know, some people in my audience might be photosensitive. But I did have a look afterwards at seeing what the battles look like without that setting on, and the battles actually look very, very cool. Which sort of undoes one of my, not complaints, but one of my sort of surprises, if anything, later. But yes, on the whole, I like the core mechanic of the battle gameplay. I think whenever they change up battle systems, like way Undertale did, or other games as well, the original Earthbound sort of things, I think it's cool. And in this one, it's basically I guess it's kind of like pole position if you've ever played that traditional arcade game. You've got lanes that you're in, and you basically have to dodge attacks while on rails. Later on you get some different sort of abilities to help combat even further, but you get things like a jumping thing, which means that you can jump over notes or attacks, and then there's later on which basically allow you to sort of deflect attacks essentially. And I think those are all very cool sort of nuances to the game. The battles are definitely the most enjoyable part of the game, I think. I loved every single battle. The game has great music, has a great soundtrack, and a lot of the battles really perfectly meet the thematic of both the music and of the character you are fighting against. But it does a really good job of sort of intertwining them, and the mechanics of the battles themselves often reflect things you would expect from a character cool. One very early on battle that you do is against this guy who always wears sunglasses, and then partway through the battle he takes his sunglasses off, and it turns out he's got laser eyes, and then the attacks basically become almost blocks of lasers coming towards you, which you can obviously you dodge, but still, I'm that's a really cool way to do it. It feels like everything is really interconnected when you do the fights, and that is a fun experience. That is diegetic, that's not the word. I don't know, verisimilitude's not really the word either, but whatever. It's cool. Things feel cohesive together. And that is definitely the best part. The music, again, maybe it's not necessarily your sort of genre, but I feel a lot of the music is really good. My favourite is still the flower shop music. I cannot remember what it's called. I think the okay part, the plot and the characters, I think were pretty okay. You know, I don't think I'd put them on a level as Undertale. I'm sorry to make a comparison to Undertale over and over and over again, but it's like, I mean, Undertale is kind of like the one that people think of when they think indie RPG, right? Like, it's like over a decade old, but there's a reason that it holds such a space in people's hearts. Because I think Undertale had really, really great writing and characters in a way that makes you like hooked to them. I think the thing with Everhood is like, I was kind of hooked to some of the characters, but some of the characters I was also not indifferent about. I was interested because I tend to be quite character focused when it comes to story, but I also felt like I didn't really have enough time with them. And I feel like the lore did confuse me a little bit. So some parts of it, not lore, not all the parts. The direct parts I felt were quite straightforward, but then the things, unsurprisingly, was layers upon layers in Everhood. Or maybe I should say a hidden layer to Everhood, which I initially didn't quite fully understand, which I think maybe lessened the impact. And I see that as a fault of my own rather than a fault of the game necessarily. Because it was like I got the vibes, but I feel like there was just like a little bit missing, which made it just sort of like click. You know, that last like sort of satisfying fit into place. But there were some characters I genuinely did like. Like I loved Blue Gnome was really great. I loved Green Mage. Those are some of the standouts. But some of the other characters I felt like I didn't get to spend enough time with them, which is sort of opposed to things like Undertale, things like Amari, where you spend a much smaller cast. I think you spend most of your time with. Makes it easier to sort of relate to them, to sort of bond with them, and then, you know, understand each other, and then also makes it more heartbreaking, I suppose, when things happen. Now, I'm going to warn you now that from here on out, spoilers are plenty, because I think it's difficult to go. No, I guess we could do small spoilers into large spoilers. So I guess this is your small spoiler warning. Again, this is a game I would recommend going in blind for, rather than knowing things about. So please do go play the game. You know, I'm not going to take offense if you stop watching this video here. But this is your first layer of spoiler warning, where I'll give mild spoilers of a game. So yeah, I mean, the overall concept of the first part of the game is basically you go around to all these different characters, these different worlds, you have funny sort of hijinks together, you meet the characters, you battle, and it's all really in good fun. Like, even the mean characters are not that mean, they're just sort of silly, it's sort of lighthearted, and it's meant to be like, oh, you start bonding with the characters. And some of them you do bond with, and some of them you don't, I suppose. It depends, kind of. I guess, maybe because the world feels so fantastical, rather than something which feels more grounded in reality, it makes it feel more fictional, I guess is the way I'd put it. Like, the way I personally relate to it, like, Undertale is fantasy. Let's get this 100% clear. It does not have any basis really in reality, but it's more like fantastical creatures in a sort of whimsical sense of reality. Like, you still have like the small towns and that sort of place. You still have like playing around in the snow with like the characters, the shopkeepers, etc., who all act like relatively normal people, despite the designs not being so. Maybe their personalities exaggerated, etc. Not to say that Undertale is necessarily the pinnacle for this, but I felt like I developed a stronger bond with the overall characters in Undertale. I developed a stronger bond with like the main characters, but then with things like side characters, I developed a bond with more like the overarching atmosphere of the area. But Everhood has a sort of like a looser grip, I think, on reality, which is totally fine. That's what it's going for. It feels fantastical, it feels silly, it feels wild, whimsical. But at the same time, I felt like maybe that made me not sort of relate, I'm not sure relate is the right word, but some, like, my investment wasn't as far as I expected in some other characters. I saw them more as like funny, like dialogue machines, I suppose, in the end, rather than maybe as a relatable character or something. Because I couldn't tell you a lot of their personalities of the characters, to be honest, in Everhood. I don't mean that as an indictment, it's just like, that's my personal opinions and feelings. You might disagree. I still very much like the characters. But yeah, you spend the first time just sort of just like going around to all these different worlds. You have a great time, you go race go-karts or whatever. There's an underlined question basically of something weird is going on though, or there's more than meets the eye. You get like a lore bit here and there. You go into a forest and you fight a weird, very trippy sort of battle against gnomes. You see letters about the place which sort of give you information about hinting to something greater. Even the intro is very much weird, where you had to accept like immortality to even start playing the game in the first place, which is very, very strange and oddly confusing. And this is your spoiler, big spoiler warning. From here on out, anything is fair game to be spoiled. So, again, if you don't want to be spoiled, please close this video. But otherwise, then like partway through the game, about halfway through, once you're done like bonding with everyone and you're on this journey basically to get your arm back, you get your arm back. You're like, nice, we love that. You just sort of get your arm back, and then it's like, oh, now you're sort of on a journey where all the pieces are sort of coming to light of how things work and how things make sense together. Is that, oh, everyone here is essentially immortal. They've signed up to be part of this program to escape reality for whatever reason that they may have wanted or chosen. Everyone is here, but they have lived for so long. What was once like a paradise of immortality, or like what could have been heaven, became one which sort of was bogged down with fatigue, disinterest, and people started turning on each other, and then everything went downhill ever since then. And from that, you are tasked with, you being the character Pink inhabiting a puppet's body. You have ability to basically end people's suffering. You can get them out of here by sort of killing them, so to say, from Everhood, and it would remove them permanently from a game. You're basically liberating them, is perhaps a way to think about it. And it gives an interesting subversion, I think, compared to like Undertale, where Undertale is just like, oh, you know, you want to do the pacifist route. You don't want to kill anyone, do you? This one is like, okay, the right answer is to kill them, because that's kind of the themes Everhood is going for. It's looking at this idea of immortality and the ennui, I suppose, of coming with endless life, and how every one of your needs hedonistically can be met eventually. What do you do once you run out of things to do? Which, you know, Undertale I also touched upon a bit with like Flowey. It's like, if you played Undertale, it's kind of like a similar sort of story with that. And then what ended up being like a nice sort of utopia became a dystopia as people get bored of life or whatever. Anyway, you're the character Pink, and you inhabit this red puppet's body or something, and for whatever reason you have a special ability where you can sort of reap these souls. A lot of people like end up ending their life in Everhood, this sort of like simulation or whatever. But you are sort of like tasked with this plan to basically reap everyone's souls, kind of, to make sure that everyone can finally rest. Some people aren't ready for it, and some people don't want it, but some people embrace it willingly. So then after you get your arm back, you gain this ability, and then you get guided by these lost souls to basically be like, okay, let's go time. And it's now a sort of meant to be, the game flips itself on its head, being like, okay, all these people that you made friends with, had a great time with, you need to kill them all, essentially. And throughout the entire thing, you've been told basically over and over again, this is a right thing to do, this is what you should be doing, this is for their own benefit. But you know, you as a player obviously don't necessarily have that perspective. You haven't lived for billions of years. You're not really sure if this is the right thing that you want to be doing, but maybe you follow on, maybe you don't, you know, depending what ending you want to take. I will say that the ending which you do end everyone's lives, or like end their souls, an existence in Everhood, is my favourite ending. I feel the others are like, okay. But they give interesting lore insights. But this is basically what I would consider the actual ending to this game. So you go through with a sort of uncertainty as you learn more and more, and you learn that that's why like people are trying to stop you. That's why, you know, your arm got stolen in first place, is because you've done this before. You've ended so many lives, and this is this sort of final hurrah that you're trying to do as you've a player controlling Pink. And there's like a big reveal, and then eventually you basically do it, and you have like a final climactic battle against the sun and then the universe itself, and you save everyone's lives. And then it turns out, oh, everyone is very thankful at the end, being like, thank you for doing this, I'm all happy, you know, thank you, Pink. And then the game ends and you can't access that save file anymore. I think it's interesting because I always do find it interesting the ways that you can play around with a meta narrative, and indie RPGs tend to do this a lot, I'd say, or indie games in general tend to do it a lot more because it's, I suppose, subversive in a way. So I think it's cool, you know, this sort of idea of Everhood is an actual thing. When you playing it, is it perpetuating its existence. You yourself are actually a player in the game. You are the one controlling Pink, who is controlling Red, and then Pink has like a discussion with you as if you were a person, kind of similar to like the way One Shot does it with Nico. Yeah, so I think it's very cool the way it does that. But then once that happens, I feel like this is where I get a little bit like it feels like the plot is missing a little bit for me personally, and that's because it kind of explores these ideas of immortality and I suppose the curse of it, and you know how horrible, unspeakable things have happened because of people becoming fatigued, ennui, because of this immortality of our life that we're living. But then everything sort of gets, and then like you have to do like what seems like a really terrible thing. You basically have to end everyone's existence. It seems horrible, it seems brutal, and with the perspective of our own mortal lives, it feels awful to do, as it should do. It should evoke those self-emotions. But I feel like it kind of undoes it all at the end by being like, oh, yeah, that genuinely was the right thing to do. Everyone does have a happy ending. I feel like I would have been like, yes, this is a nice visceral plot, which makes me really think even more if that didn't happen. You don't get that sort of closure to it because you don't know. I mean, that's what ending of existence is. There is nothing more. You have no idea if that was a good idea or not. These people have lived presumably millions of lives, billions of years, and this is finally the end of a never-ending existence. And whether that existence was bliss or torment is up to each person, but you are the one who is deciding for them, essentially. And that is a sort of interesting moral ambiguity, which I really was like engaging with. I was like, this is interesting, this is cool. I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. Obviously this is a game, so it's not like there's only, you know, that there's going to be some endings here and there, so I continued through with it anyway. And while I did appreciate, like, it warmed my heart to see everyone like nicely reunited and that sort of thing, it's a nice good ending, I feel like it would have been cool to have it be not a bad ending, but like, that's it, that's done, you defeated everything, that's gone, thank you, your work here is done. And then not that's it, like maybe tie up a bit of a nicer way, but leave that sort of moral ambiguity as a question, right? I feel like that would be cool, but again, your mileage may vary with that. And then maybe if you spare everyone's lives, you have that sort of like happy ending, but it's a happy ending of a perpetual existence of this is how it's going to continue forever. Is that truly happiness? I don't know, because I feel like it goes a lot into this sort of interesting perspective with immortality, because immortality gives you a very different sort of time scale that you look at things in. So, you know, it's not that morals go out the window per se, but the sort of erosion on your own mind of existing forever brings about interesting questions which require you to think from a different perspective. So that's like my small little gripe with Everhood, where it's just like, I feel like the subversion was cool, and then it was like, okay. It didn't quite hit me, I think, in the way that I expected it to, but I did enjoy at least the journey all the way through to the end, and the destination was fun. It just wasn't the destination I was necessarily expecting. I'll quickly touch on the other endings. I think the Frog-Wrath endings, the other endings all basically give more lore, in my opinion. I don't think they really feel like satisfying endings. Like the Frog-Wrath one is like cool to see the frog's perspective and like how many times they've been through this trying to make it work. The corridor ending isn't an ending, to be honest. The gem ending, I can't remember how the gem ending goes. This is the one where you defeat the cat. I can't remember how it ends now, so maybe that's indicative or something. And then the ending with Sam is just strange, I would guess. I think it's, again, just more lore. You see Pink sort of reviving herself over and over again with Dr. Orange's like different robots. Dolls, vessels, even. So really, like the true ending, the ending where you save everyone's lives, is kind of the one I would consider the best ending, in both the narrative sense and the one to play through. But yeah, I think it's an interesting story, at very least. So the interesting idea of it keeps a lot as mystery. You know, it's interesting to see things slowly uncover and slowly discover like weird, wacky, wonderful things for yourself. But really, I think the highlight is the battle system. The battle system is really cool. It's really fun. And from what I can see in the videos, it's a very trippy experience. Like visually very fun as well. My personal experience was like, I'm surprised how visually plain some of it is, but I didn't realize how much it turned off if you turned off a photosensitivity mode. But, you know, again, for the benefit of people who might be photosensitive, because you know, I sort of go back and forth on it a little bit, because I'm just like, should I keep it on? Just have a warning at the beginning of a video? for photosensitivity, which I've done before for, I can't remember, some game. But then I found out like I would forget to save a warning at the start of a video sometimes. I'm like, that seems like an issue. Or do I just turn it off and then for accessibility so everyone can enjoy? I don't know what the right answer is necessarily for that. But I think in this case, if you can have it on, if you can turn off, like if you can have the full experience with the flashing lights and everything, do so. They are like very cool. But yes, so I don't know. In short, I think the core mechanical concept, really cool. Soundtrack, great. Characters and plot, good, fine. Your mileage may vary, I think. Is it worth playing? I think if you like the core mechanical concept of it, it's worth playing. Otherwise, the story, it's okay. Like it's decent, I would say, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe it just didn't hook me for some subjective reason, which I couldn't possibly place. Maybe, I don't know. But I still enjoyed it at the end. I'd still say it's worth playing in general, though. Like, worth checking out. So, that's what I think about Everhood, I guess. I guess if there's anything more, I'll say. Or if anyone has their own thoughts, feel free to share below. But for now, I'll round this episode off here. So, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.